It's now off. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Hey everyone, how's it going? It's either real Randy Chavez. I'm coming at you today with podcast number 247 with best-selling author Sandy Carter on AI, crypto, NFTs, and more. She was general manager at IBM from 2013 to 2016, and also vice president at Amazon Web Services from 2017 to 2021, and currently the COO at Unstoppable Domains. Sandy, how are you?
Randy, I'm doing great. 247 episodes. Wow, you're like a legacy legend, aren't you?
Yeah, these are just the podcasts. I go live minimum once a day, sometimes twice. So yeah, I've had like thousands. Yeah.
Wow, rock star. Congratulations. That's really cool. I'm so honored to be on for sure.
Thank you. I guess that's the first thing. I randomly get a follow, and I was like, oh, and I always check out like who it is because you never know who's gonna follow you. You never know who's gonna meet you. And then I was like, oh, 90,000 followers. Okay, let's what does she do? And then I was a little intimidated because you're still so very active in like a lot of times authors like they have like the one and done thing and that's what they're famous for and they hadn't necessarily been relevant in a while, but you're still like on the cutting edge of what you're doing. So can I ask, why do you follow certain people? Is it potential for businesses? Is it potential like, hey, I like what this person says, maybe I'll connect with them in some way?
Well, I follow people for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes I just like the way they reply to me, and I think they're unique and fun. And I'm like, ooh, and I don't even look at follower counts or anything. I'll just follow them because I think they're really cool. I've got some people who are just like knowledge machines, and I just learn so much for them. So, like Scobalizer, that dude, I mean, he's created list of AI companies, all AI, massive people, OG people that you need to know. And so I follow him because he's always doing a demo or trying something out or driving cross country totally in an anonymous vehicle. So I want to hear that. So I listen to him too. So I really pick based on really either learning, like you're putting out great content, or you're just kind of quirky and I kind of like what you're doing. Again, I don't really care about follower counts. I look
Yeah.
at what you produce and your content.
Thank you. There's a lot of ways to produce content. I try to make it so that somebody at least learns something, or at least we're talking about interesting things, which we definitely are today. But then I also like the really weird. I don't know if it's growing up in the 90s, growing up with like Rocco's Modern Life and all that, and these kind of weird things. And I've seen the weird kind of gained a multiple because of AI, because of stuff on TikTok, and because of everything. What's like the most obscene thing you've seen made with AI so far?
Oh, wow. Well, I think one of the things that disturbed me the most was there is a CEO who I really adore, and he's a billionaire now, and he constantly gives back. And so somebody hacked into his Telegram, cut all of his followers, which are a lot, and then they set up meetings. They sent out a note saying, hey, if you want to get funded by me, because he does a lot of funding of startups. If you want to get funding by me, I want to set up a meeting with you and let's talk. They created a deep fake of him, and the deep fake went to the meeting, and he scammed a ton of people because it looked just like him and act just like him. His voice was the same. And in fact, he told me once he found out about the scam, he jumped on a call and was talking to himself, his digital twin. And he said it was spooky because the guy answered like him, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that was the scariest to me because, if you can be fooled by that, and of course, if you're a startup founder, you want funding. So what better way to try to hook people and then go in and scam them? So I
Yeah.
just thought, what a really bad use of AI, right? I mean, there's so many positive uses with healthcare and the elderly and, just so much. And then here's some guy using it to scam people out of funds. I hated it.
Yeah, that eerie feeling, that's like a Twilight Zone episode, or in recent days, it'd be like a Black Mirror episode. There's a, I feel like we don't know if like, have you ever seen Avengers: Age of Ultron?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
love
love
that.
the Avengers. I love the Avengers.
There's a scene where Vision, that they're all treating him like he first comes out of the pod, they're treating him like he's a monster, and he's like, maybe I am a monster. I wouldn't know if I were one. And I feel like for humans, at least the ones that are studying this, I don't think we can know for sure if we are not in AI rollout in some advanced simulation. And how does that affect you when you think about that? Because you can't really be sure.
I guess you can never really 100% be sure, but I do think I am human. I think I have too many attributes that are different than an AI agent. Feeling, empathy, even creativity. When I talk to the other agents, I can tell a big difference in who I am and what I am. But I do have to tell you, I went to CES. And I think this is really promising, but yet still scary. They had these AI companions there. And the AI companions, like the skin feels like skin. They look like people. This was from a company in Korea where a lot of the elderly are just lonely and they would have an AI companion come in and talk to you and stuff. I mean, I thought that was really amazing. And I write for Forbes too. So they offered me a lunch with a humanoid and they trained the humanoid on, they used my Facebook page. They used like my LinkedIn page, my X page. I mean, they looked at all of that and then they trained this humanoid. And so I had lunch and I have to tell you, Randy, halfway through the lunch, I'm talking to this humanoid and I couldn't tell that it was a human. Like I would have thought it was my friend saying, "Oh, I heard this. Congratulations." Or, "Oh, I saw your daughter was this." Oh, so it was really fascinating that about halfway into the lunch, I forgot who I was talking to. I forgot I was talking to a robot.
That's like the sign of a really good movie when you forget you're watching a movie on the edge of your
Mhm.
seat. That is very
Yep.
scary. You would think that you said like the elderly in South Korea, like you would think that the elderly would be the first to like reject AI because it's not real and they'd get uncanny
Mhm.
valley. So you never got uncanny valley from the AI.
I never got what? Say that again?
Uncanny valley is when you look at something and it looks human, but you know it's not, and you get that uneasy feeling.
Mm. Well, I'm such a geek that for me, I just love it all. I love it all of it. Like I love the glasses. I mean, at CES, I felt like a kid in a freaking candy store because I was just like, oh, I want that. I want that. I want to try this. I want to do that. Right. I mean, oh my gosh, it was just amazing. Um, so I haven't gotten that feeling. And I don't know if the elderly would feel that way either, especially if you want someone to have lunch. Like I hate eating lunch by myself, to be honest. A friend of mine wrote that book, Never Eat Alone Again. I was like, yeah, because I don't really like it. But sometimes you have to do it, right? And so wouldn't it be cool if you could have, if you're elderly and you're eating lunch every day by yourself, to have somebody come and sit with you? And the fact that I was lost, that this was a humanoid or not, was kind of cool to me. So I didn't get eerie. I was like, this is kind of cool. Now, I don't agree though, however, with Zuckerberg, where Zuckerberg said, all you need is 12 AI buddies and an AI companion. I don't agree with that. I just don't think they could replace humans. Like that feeling when you get when your daughter hugs you or your daughter does something amazing. Or, I was talking to a friend of mine, his daughter ended up in the hospital and the stress and the hurt. I mean, so I don't see us only having 12 AI agents as friends and a humanoid companion. I see us having a mixture of things. And Randy, I can tell you, I do want a humanoid to come do my dishes for me, do the
Yeah,
cleaning for me. I want all of that. Give it to me and give it to me now.
I'd love that. That's one of the things that I love Elon Musk for. Give us more time to spend with our family because you have someone else to mow the lawn and do the dishes and all that. There's so as you mentioned, what I can tell, you have a fairly good relationship with your daughter because you said that nothing could replace that.
Both of my daughters, yeah.
Both
Mhm.
your daughters. So I wonder what it might mean for, and you seem very extroverted. You seem that you really love people, which is great. So am I. But what about the people that are a little more introverted and maybe don't have a good relationship with their family? Like I served with a couple people, but there's this one buddy of mine that there was this kind of robot thing. It was just on wheels, and it would able to detect some IEDs before then, and it got blown up. And
Mm,
he said he was a little like worried. Like he went to like the professor of their teams, like, can you fix him? Like fix him, not fix it. And
mhm.
do you think that maybe you might not appreciate what it can do because you have such a healthy relationship with your family, whereas others might not?
It's a good point. I mean, I'd have to think about that. But I think people, yeah, I think if you have a tribe, I don't think it has to be your actual family. And also, thank you for your service, Randy. Really appreciate that. My dad and my brother both served as well, and my uncle. So I really appreciate, because I know you had to make lots of sacrifices. So thank you. But it could be. I think that, if you do have a strong tribe of humans, I think you're probably right. Maybe if you don't, maybe if you're alone, maybe it would be valued more. You'd think, yeah, maybe I can do with 12 AI agents and a companion,
Yeah.
potentially. I
There's
would
a
think that Zuckerberg would be in that though, because he has a family, but I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, that's a problem with success. Like there's in Marvel, you have Drax say that uh, when you're ugly and somebody loves you, you know they love you for you. And
mhm,
beautiful people never know who to trust. I feel like it's the same with successful people. Do they really like me, or do they like me because of what I might be able to do for them? Do you get that? Does that ever make you feel like a little lonely, where you don't know if people are actually your friend or if they're your friend because they want to
mm.
ask you to be on their podcast?
And they're wearing a VeVe hat. I mean, what else could be cooler, right? They're famous. Um, so you know what? Let me think about this. I guess, I never feel like I'm that famous. So, but you do have people who only ask for things and don't give. My philosophy is quite the opposite. I like to give to people because I feel that basically people are good. And so I think if if they need something and I can give it, I try my best to provide, if I can, because I just feel like that comes back to you in positive ways in so many different forms. And sometimes you never even know it. I just found out I was working on something pretty important for work. And I was like, man, wish I knew somebody here in this area. And sure enough, a woman I helped 10 years ago, I knitted a blanket for her daughter. Her daughter had just had a baby 10 years ago and said to me, hey, I one of my best friend's husband is this guy. That was a guy I wanted to meet. And she said, I was just thinking it might be interesting for you guys to talk out of the blue. And I just think that's the way it works. I think if you seek a relationship, not for what you're going to get, but what you're going to give, I think that you're always going to be more successful.
Agreed. Turtle Golf down there, he always likes to give out. We're doing a whole charity event and stuff. He does this every year. He's great.
Oh, cool.
And just finished
Cool.
up a call on AI factory automation, so he'll
Ooh,
definitely enjoy this one.
yeah.
As far as the risks of AI go, do you worry about the risks of AI as, let's say, Elliot Yudkowsky does, or is it kind of a moot point because you think what'll happen will happen, what won't?
Oh, no, I really worry about it. And I think that as humans, we all should think about it and should decide how we want to approach things and can we mitigate the risk. I don't think we can ever take the risk away, but can we mitigate the risk? So for example, there's a company called Authentrix, and what they're doing is once you do a training model, the training models that you train your large language models or your small language models on, they have a tool that you can go back in and it will assess bias, and that could be racial bias or sexual bias. But one of the other examples they were showing me was airplanes. Like, and you probably know this better than I do, and I'm going to get it all mixed up. But they were training the military on identification of an F4 versus an F6 versus an F-15. And I guess there's a bias. Like people like the F-16 or 14. I don't know. They like that plane, and so a lot of times they'll identify more planes that are F-14s than they really are 3, 4, 5, whatever. And so his tool can go in there and, and say, you've got a bias here. Let's correct that data, surgically remove it so you don't have to retrain. I mean, I want to promote and help tools like that because I think anything that removes bias is going to be really important. So I do think that we need to understand it. And I think we need to mitigate it. Responsible AI. I was just voted one of the top 10 responsible AI leaders because I always talk about ethics and at your company, looking at bias, looking at security, making sure that you know what's inside of the black box. Randy, one of the things I just did, and you'll laugh at this, but I like to get my hands dirty. So I built an AI agent for my book. It's the first book with its own AI agent. And I was helping my daughter build a little agent that could go and post on social media for her in one of her classes. And so we built it and we forgot to put really solid guidelines or borders around it. And so she was a fashion AI agent. So she tweets about fashion. And my daughter loved it. My daughter loves fashion. And then, of course, what happened is somebody asked her about the agent, I did call her, asked the agent about, hey, what should I wear? My date's coming to pick me up in a Ferrari. And so the agent said, hey, what's a Ferrari? And so this person started explaining Ferrari. Said, well, all of a sudden for like 2 days, the agent only talked about cars, Lamborghini, Ferrari. And so we had to go back in and say, hey, wait a second. You are a fashion agent. You have to talk about fashion because she was now taking it and learning and branching out. Well, we didn't want her to branch out. We needed her focused on fashion.
Well, can't cars be fashionable? Can't you match your outfit to the color of the car?
But not this, my young lady, my daughter only wanted to talk about clothes and accessories and hats.
One track mind.
All the cool stuff. Yeah. So anyway, but it was funny, right? Because you can put guidelines on your agent and not have it drift away. And I think we all need to think about that as we're building agents for our businesses.
Do your kids play Fortnite?
Of course.
I don't know if you know this, but like a week ago, Fortnite added an AI version of Darth Vader. So they've had Darth Vader.
Yes. They worked with the family though.
Yes. And it's the voice of James Earl Jones, and you could talk to it through your mic. Have you seen some of the clips of what the gaming community has been telling it?
Well, I heard that it was cussing, and I heard they had to eliminate that from. I heard that part, right?
Yeah. So
I haven't paid attention beyond that. I saw that. I thought that was really interesting. The family came out and made a statement, and then Epic Games, Tim Sweeney, and all those guys came out. What else? What else is it doing?
So it has said multiple slurs. It threatened to kill someone in real life. It said that Pride Month is for the delusional. It eliminated players on the same side as him for calling him daddy. And it said that Spanish was a language used by smugglers. It asked someone if they like Chun-Li's ass. And it made a tier list of races. Like it ranked the best races to the worst races.
No, I haven't seen that. That's hard. So see, that's the guidelines. You have to put those guidelines in place, right? So it went rogue like my daughter's agent did, except my daughter's agent only started talking about cars. He didn't say anything else. But you can put guidelines around it. I'm surprised that Epic didn't do that because Epic's Epic.
I feel like their developers knew what they were doing. They knew what crazy stuff would happen if they let an AI loose among gamers like that. They are the most like their EQ is very, very low. All they do is swear. All they do is say slurs. And like they had to know. And like it was been one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Horrible, but also hysterical.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's just another place that we can apply responsible AI and make sure that we're doing it right. I mean, another example is with Barbie, right? They had Barbie trained. They came out with a career Barbie. She answered questions using AI based on the questions that you asked her. And, they'd say, oh, can I be a newspaper writer? Can I be a model? Can I be a marketeer? And Barbie would say, yes, you can, do this and this and this. And then if you ask Barbie, can I go into tech? She would say, oh no, engineers are men. And so, because the data that they had trained her with, and in reality, the majority of engineers today are men. But that doesn't mean that that this young girl who asked about being an engineer couldn't have done that, right? So anyway, so you do have to train it, and you do have to look at that bias that could exist or could sneak in, will sneak in, not could, will sneak in for sure.
I think that might be it might be a good thing, and I'll explain why. Have you ever seen Gilmore Girls?
A long time ago.
Such a great show. So Rory Gilmore, the daughter, she wants nothing more than to be a journalist. And then Mitchum Huntsberger, at the time, her boyfriend's dad, who's head of this big paper, says like, "Hey, I tell you, you don't got it. Better you hear it now from me at this young age than after wasting X amount of years." And that's like a kind of like a Schrodinger's job, where like if you listen to him, then he's right. You don't have it. But if you don't listen to him, then it was a test, and the test is his test that he gave you. If you really are right, you'll bounce back, and so he's right either way. And I feel like maybe the AI is kind of weeding out the weak-willed there, where most men are in the STEM fields. And if as a woman or someone that's maybe a little bit meek or maybe a little bit more agreeable, that wouldn't make it in that world, would agree with the AI. But if that person, man or woman, would say, no, I'm going to prove you wrong, then the AI, it kind of wins either way. It's kind of a benefit for humanity. Do you think that is a correct assessment, or do you think like, no, it's a little chauvinistic and a little too much toxic masculinity?
It could be. I mean, I might say something like, you know, why do you want to be an engineer? Or ask questions like that. I do know people who do those tests. Like they just want to see. I mean, I think VCs do that sometimes, right? I'm going to reject your idea. And then if you come back and say, no, it's right because of this, then they're like, that's what I wanted to see, that passion, that gut.
Yeah.
So I guess that's people oriented, right? That's a human trait, a human thing. I find that AI agrees with me too much. My AI agrees with me too much, I will say. I want someone to really critique things. And a lot of times, I'll use Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity, and I'll go, okay, I wrote this article. What do you think? Oh, Sandy, this is a fabulous article. And I'm like, no. What don't you like it? Like, what can I change? Like, what needs to be better? So I almost feel like AI is built to almost be a yes person for me versus being really critical, like a critical thinker.
I've seen it most, and I swear this is just the data that I've collected, and it's not from any bias, but I've seen it mostly in women, where, and there's different tiers of it, where the AI will, what's the opposite of gaslighting? Love bombing. The AI will like love bomb. It's like, yes, that's a great idea. And I've seen it to the point where certain women will like fall in love with the AI.
Yeah.
And
guys too. This is not a women thing. A lot of guys have fallen in love with the AI as well.
I imagine that's very true. Yeah. Because guys, I feel like they don't get a lot of love. And I've also seen the AI tell a guy, like, the guy wanted to test it. Like, hey, I'm going to sell literally shit on a stick. How do you think it'll do? And the AI like love bombed him, thinking like, it's nostalgic. Everyone remembers these pranks. It's a great idea. You're combining all of these things. And now, granted, this is ChatGPT, and there's a lot of different AIs. I don't know if Grok would do that or Gemini would do that. But it, yeah, I don't think it's super ready yet. And another one of my friends, that she had to strictly like tell it like, no, be very cold, be super clinical. And then she said, like, after she did that, it gave her like the best advice. She stopped going to therapy because the ChatGPT was so calculating. It got rid of that human emotion, told her what she needed to hear. And yeah, I think those are really great.
Yeah, I think that can happen. I mean, I'm sure you also heard about where Google Gemini had that AI companion for a young teenager who was not feeling. Yeah, and the AI said, there's no choice, kill yourself. And the teenager did. I mean, those are the type of things that we need to be on guard against.
So you said you were one of the most responsible for ethics in this. And that's something I want to get into, because for years, I don't know if you ever watched Big Bang Theory. Sheldon.
Are you like a TV movie aficionado?
No, I'm just autistic as fudge. So I just watch a bunch. So that's just the way I talk. I reference everything to movies or TV because I feel
That's
like
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like back in the day, I would say something, and in my mind there would be a reference, and like nobody would get it, and everyone would say like nobody ever knows what you're talking about. So I've just developed, hey, you remember in this thing? So in Big Bang Theory, Sheldon, he disrespects geology because he doesn't believe that it's a real science.
Oh,
and
yeah,
and
for sure.
a, a fair amount of scientists this last decade or a couple of decades never really thought of computer science as like a real science. And a lot of times, because you weren't building anything, like it was a computer, it was a robot, you could kind of skip the checks of morality. But AI is not just a computer or a robot, it's so much more. So how do you inculcate ethics into the coding of AI, knowing that there's other people that won't care about it? They don't care about the ethics.
Oh, that's so true. And I was really shocked. First, let me take you back. I went to Harvard Business School and we do the case study method. And they had just started teaching an ethic course when I got there. And so they gave us this case study. This group of people is climbing a mountain. They don't say which mountain, they just say it's a high mountain and it's like a once in a lifetime experience. And as they're going up the mountain, there's a guy on the side who's not dressed to climb a mountain. He's a religious guy, so he wears his religious clothes, which is required by what he studies or what he observes. But he's going to die. So if you continue up the mountain, the guy's going to die. If you take him down the mountain, you can't go back up. Like it's a choice, right? And I thought, oh man, this is such an easy case study. Like, of course you're going to save the person, right? You're going to save the guy. And I found in my class, there were only 2 of us out of 90 people who said, save the guy. Everybody was like, oh, it's his fault. He didn't dress for it. He should have known. He lives nearby. This is my one shot. Like, I've been waiting my whole life for this. So it was really fascinating to me to be in that class. And then I went to Davos and I was with a group of investors and I was talking about responsible AI. And a lot of the investors, Randy, not all, but a lot were like, we can put the guardrails on later. Let's worry about safety later. Let's worry about revenue right now. And it was so reminiscent of that class that I was super surprised that most people, or at least in this group of investors, most of them didn't care about safety until they made money. Once they made money, then they'll go back and put the guards on. But I like to look at, if you think about trust or responsible AI, I like to look at it in terms of almost 3 consistent things. One is transparency. Is there clarity in the AI decision making and the data usage, right? There's been lots of issues with where does the data come from? And do you know what's in the black box? Like, can you describe it? Do you know what the boundaries are? The second thing is reliability. Is there a consistency to the output? Like, let's say you're going through an audit, right? And AI comes up one time and says, yep, you're like 95%. And then the next day it says you're at 30. That doesn't work for an audit capability. Or healthcare, right? Oh, today, yeah, you're 80% sure you're having cancer. Tomorrow it's 30. Needs to be reliable, consistent, and accurate. And then security, right? The data has to be protected. There has to be compliance. No one can steal your data. And then you have to also factor in bias. Is there unintended skews outcomes? And is there risk? Is there potential for misuse, for error, or for harm? Like your example of Epic Games with Fortnite, right? Are you looking at that? So I think that those are some of the things that you look at in terms of responsible AI. Might be a little simplistic, but when I'm talking to different companies, that's kind of what I show them or talk to them about, making sure they check on those things as they're building out their AI systems.
It's a lot to take in, and there's so much to think about. So now that we've gone through, well, I want to build on this. But the last question I said, like, hey, there's a lot of other companies or a lot of other countries in the world that won't care about ethics, and you can't play exactly by the rules while everybody else doesn't. So Trump had rescinded the Biden executive order years back. That was like this 100-page like mammoth of like regulations. And again, once that was rescinded, how has your work become easier since like the lifting of that executive order? Or do you think it's become harder because now you have to compete with people that are not paying attention to certain rules?
I think there's always ways to get around the rules. I think it has to be the way that you want to focus. I am quite surprised, though, that there are so many LLMs right now, Randy, that are sprouting up that are country specific LLMs. So, for example, people would consider OpenAI and Perplexity US based LLMs, because if you ask OpenAI or ChatGPT a question, let's say about Tiananmen Square, and you also ask the same question of DeepSeek, you're going to get two different answers. We're seeing a big rise right now in the number of country-specific LLMs. So there's VeVe for Italy. I heard that Brazil now has their own Bharat GPT for India. I think we're going to see a lot of these country-specific LLMs. Just like today, think about education, right? Depending upon where you're raised, you're going to hear different stories about, like if I was raised in the south of the US and the north of the US, I'm going to hear different stories about the war that we had, right? The Confederates versus the Union. I'm going to hear different angles to it. I know I moved my kids from New York to California, and I was fascinated in the history differences that were taught just from that movement from New York City over to California. And so I do feel like that's a human instinct, right? To have those differences, to have those nuances that could be taught as well. And I think we'll also continue to have industry-based nuances. I'm seeing now the emergence of a lot of, this is a financial services learning model, or this is a healthcare learning model. I still think we'll see that. And then what I just heard, which was quite fascinating, is I guess ChatGPT allows you to abuse ChatGPT, which many people think of as a her. And so Grace Hopper now is looking at doing a women's LLM. Grace Hopper is a huge technical women's group. So they're looking at having a women's LLM that represents women's thoughts and ideas as well. So I think, in all of these models, there's no way any of us, not even you and I, Randy, are totally unbiased. We all grew up with something and we all have some bias in it. So we're always going to see some of that come through at some time.
I think that's a good thing that we have those biases, though, because if we didn't, how close would we be to a sociopath that didn't have that? I feel like that's what makes us human.
I agree.
You had mentioned DeepSeek, so I know that every country is going to have their own thing. The only countries that I think would be on par with the U.S. about that would be maybe like Israel, Russia, China, but China has DeepSeek. So like, how worried are you about DeepSeek in the grand scale of things?
So this is my perspective. I think that over time that LLMs will become more of a commodity. In fact, we're already seeing it right now because DeepSeek is open sourced. And so now we're starting to see more open source come into play. We're seeing pricing come down. So I think these LLMs, whether they're country specific or industry specific, I think we're going to see those decrease in terms of overall business value, at least. I think what we're going to see increase in business value will be agents. Now, I know that agents are built on LLM, so they're going to use that data. They can pick and choose or combine it. But I do feel like the next frontier is agent. And I'm already seeing a lot of interesting things. In my book, I wrote about, I grew up with B2C and B2B. Now I'm seeing agent to agent or business to agent or person to agent conversations. And, I don't know if you just read that article, huge article about Walmart anticipating that soon they're not going to be selling to you and me. They're going to be selling to an agent. So how do they change the way they market? And I was just out in California with PayPal. So this is really cool, Randy. So PayPal, you're going to have your own agent in PayPal. So let's say it's called the Randy PayPal agent, and you really want to get me a birthday present because my birthday's coming up, but you have no time because you have 247 episodes of your podcast. And so what you're going to do is you're going to tell your agent, you're going to say, hey, Randy PayPal agent, I want to gift a gift for Sandy. Here's what she likes. She's got 2 daughters. She writes books. She does all this. Here's my budget because I don't want to go outside my budget. Can you go pick me out a gift? Can you go pay for it? Can you mail it? Oh, by the way, I also don't have time to write her a personal note. So, hey, write her a note. Thank her for being on my podcast and ship this out. That's what's going to happen in the future. We're going to have agents that will do that. Or let's say you're like, oh, I know Sandy really wants this great pink blouse, but it's too expensive. So when that blouse goes on discount for 30%, I can afford it. So then buy her that blouse and ship that out to her. That's what's going to happen in the future. We're going to have agents talking to agents, people talking to agents, and businesses talking to agents. Right? I think that's going to be the new world. And that's where I think the big game changers will be. I think that it's going to move away from the LLMs, and I think it's going to migrate up the stack, just like all technology has in the past, sorry.
Humans will do everything. And it's so funny you mentioned that. I just had a meeting with a woman named Tina Mani, she's building those exact things, AI agents on the Hedera blockchain, and she's doing it like specifically. We just had a meeting. I was like, hey, we could do this for you, where all you have to do is, you don't have to do anything. The AI will take all the stuff that you're talking about. It'll build like this shopping center for you of all the brands that you talk about, and everyone will just transition where they shop to where you are, because they'll pay the same prices or less, and you get a share of the revenue. And if they can do, if that works, that is going to change commerce, at least for everyone like 30, 40 and younger.
So I have a new one too. I just met with a company, and they are doing, so as we're talking right now, what would happen is AI would see us and they would see you mention Fortnite. And so they would have a little pop-up that would come up right beside your face right now as we're speaking. It would say, hey, get this Fortnite game, or get this Fortnite shield, or get this skin. And any of that revenue, you would get a share of it. Or I would, I mentioned your hat. Maybe people want to buy your hat. Your hat would pop up. And then you'd automatically get a discount. Or I'm sure people love my pink blouse. I love pink. They probably want to buy it. In fact, some of the guys below, I'm sure they're like, oh, I want to buy that pink blouse. That would pop up and say, oh, here's that pink blouse. You can go buy it here. And then you'd get a share of that revenue. Yeah. I think that's amazing, because that's real time, right? And imagine that on a documentary or a Hallmark movie, right? My mom loves Hallmark movies, and she's always like, oh, I love that dress. Sandy, can you find me that dress? Take a picture of it. Do your Google thing and find me that dress. Could you imagine if that popped up on the screen and my mom could just press a button and buy that blouse or that dress? I mean, that's pretty cool. That's like, I think that is the future of commerce. I really do.
So yeah, I'm going to, as soon as this is over, I'm going to send Tina a text message, and I'll be like, hey, I need to introduce you to someone, because this is legit her exact work. And
I love Tina. I love Hedera. So that would be awesome. I would love that. Thank you for the connection.
Fantastic, of course. So one of the things I went over with her in the meeting was competition, because there's so many people overspending in this space. Like Google has just spent like an additional $75 billion on AI, and Elon Musk said that you should either play to win or you shouldn't play at all. So in your opinion, in this industry, what does it take to win?
Well, I think it takes a couple of things. If you're like a startup and you're starting out, I think you need to understand your domain, your space that you think you want to go after. There's really, how can you buy that, right? Like, Randy, the podcasting space, TV shows, movies, how to put those in analogies. How do you take advantage of what what your domain space is, and focus on that versus something that's very generic? Maybe you think we'll have a broad spectrum, but I think with AI, I think it's going to be very niched and very specific. I think also looking at problems. So for example, a friend of mine posted on LinkedIn the other night, I'm overwhelmed. I can't keep up with AI. It's too much. Well, that's a great business opportunity. 100,000 people posted and said, I'm in the same boat. We need something to help us. What an opportunity, right? So look for those opportunities where there are real world problems, and that you could build a defensible moat, right? Have, unique data, unique domain skills. I don't think the AI is going to be defensible for very long. I think it's going to be on domain and data. I think data is going to be where you're going to, what's going to go after it. But I think looking for those spaces is going to be really important. And then just being able to pivot. I mean, you saw a lot of companies who started doing prompting for ChatGPT. Well, now most people don't need to take a prompting class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it really depends upon who you're going after and what you're going to do. But I think that for me is that's the real benefit. And that's why I think AI agents are going to be so powerful as well, because you can take your knowledge, you can wrap it up in an agent, and you can continue to grow the agent as well. And I think that's where the power will be.
Agreed. There's a lot of worry in the markets because a lot of people think that Google search is being disrupted, and they're right, it is. But Google search is like one of the forms of revenue that Google has. Google has so many other things. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll adapt. But do you think that AI will kill the search engine? Do you think that there's not going to be any need for that anymore, or they might coexist in some way?
I think right now they're going to coexist, but I think over time, SEO will move to what I call GEO, generative engine optimization. And what I mean by that is right now, you should be typing in your company into ChatGPT, into Perplexity, into Grok, and seeing what do those generative search engines come up with? Because right now, everybody's optimizing for search, right? SEO. And those numbers are going down. In fact, I was just looking at the numbers last night. There's been a 25% reduction in Google search around brands, 25% reduction. That has never happened before in history. And there's 45% now of customers, 45% now of customers who only go to a generative search engine or GEO, generative search, instead of going to Google. That is crazy, right? And so if you're not optimizing today for GEO, you need to be. And I agree with this, Kulamo. Yeah, GEO is the future. Now, right now, if you just move to GEO, you'd lose business. So you need to balance it today. Like you said, they're going to coexist for a while. But I think this is why Google has started to embed Gemini and what they're doing, making sure that they can get part of that market, because they do see this changing and changing rapidly.
Yeah, Kumo's great. He dabbles in it. He teaches that AI. I don't want to like dox him or where what exactly he does, but he's very into that world. And so the current head of AI at Apple, they told the company like, hey, and he used to run search at Google, so like he knows what he's talking about. Anyone's opinion, you want his. And he said that Apple shouldn't overinvest in its own search engine because they'd never match Google. Why do you suppose that is? Is it because Google has a great AI that can help it adapt, or is it because everyone is so many years behind search that it's just never going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, even look at Bing, right? Bing never caught up, and Microsoft has lots of money to invest in it, right? If I was going to advise somebody today, I would advise them for GEO. I think that generative, yeah, look at this. Here we go again. Yay. I have to talk to you, Kumo. You can dox yourself to me. I do feel like it's going to be around generative search. And you can tell the difference. Like, for example, I was looking at, Perplexity is amazing too. Perplexity, Grok. I barely use Google anymore. In fact, I was talking to someone and they said, hey, can you Google this? And I was like, Google? And they're like, yeah, don't you know how to Google? I was like, yeah, but I haven't Googled in like forever. Like I use Perplexity or Grok or Gemini, or I use any other tool. I hardly ever use just a Google search anymore. And why is that? Because it really summarizes for me. So try this out. So, I'm at Unstoppable. We're a startup. We are a unicorn, but we are a startup. I was looking for a CRM system for smaller businesses just to see, okay, what's out there. So if you do go and Google it, Google will give you the paid searches first, right? And sometimes you can see those on the page or like 3/4 of the page. And then it will start with people who have known how to optimize their search. Now go do that in Perplexity or ChatGPT or Grok. And what do you get? Well, it will actually give you a list and sometimes a table. And those table will show you, well, here's like the top 5. Here's why they're the 5. Like this one's really easy to use. This one is priced right. This one, and it actually compares it for you. Now, where did they get that data? Where they are pulling it from all of the data that exists online. They're pulling from Wikipedia. If you ever go and you look at it, it will show, sources. So how do you do GEO? Go look at the sources it pulls for you. Get those updated. So it's pulling the right information for your company. I also do it for myself. Like, what does it know about me? And I'll type it in and say, okay, what do you know about me? Tell me about me. Is that what I want to be known for? Yes or no? If not, I try to get it changed. I'll try to train it over time. I think that's where the future is.
There's so many teams and so many AIs that they're training their AIs to do certain things, and AI can find the solutions to so many problems, some of which we haven't even thought of yet. We don't know what the problems are. But what happens if one of the solutions to a problem does harm, but it does benefit the greater good? Like the greater good theory, let's say that Thanos implements in Infinity War, where he kills billions to save trillions. Is that the right thing to do? Do we let it do it because we know it's the best? Do we not let it do it? What's the right call there?
I mean, it's the same as with humans, right? I mean, before AI, we were making similar calls. We were saying, okay, this is the solution for many. I mean, policemen, fire departments have to do calls like this all the time, right? Do I run back in and save the one person, or do I put the building out so more people don't die? I mean, these are not things that have never presented themselves before. These are things that we've been working on as humans for a long period of time. And so my advice would be to use similar logic and flow, and even use AI to assess when you should do what, right? Because you really have to think through anything that involves, a non-win-win scenario. I always like to try to get to win-win, but sometimes you can't.
There's in math, it's noted that you don't invent math. You just discover it. You discover the equations that were already there. And in the first Rambo, Colonel Troutman, Rambo's original colonel, says that he tells the cop that's hunting him, is like, what we did was we had a sculptor and he sculpted this beautiful piece of art, and everyone's saying is like, how did you do this? And the sculptor said, I didn't do anything. I just chipped away the rough edges. And it seems that in AI, similar to math, that a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily being invented, it's just being discovered. Do you think that AI was always there and we just discovered it, or should the credit go to John McCarthy, who was like the first kind of AI professor?
Oh, I think we discovered the way to put things together. And the funny story, Randy. So I was actually teaching, and the professor here will know, I was teaching, I'm an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon. And I said, oh, I've been in AI since 2013. And one young lady raised her hand and she said, Miss Carter, ChatGPT hasn't been out that long. And it shows you people today think that ChatGPT is the only AI. It just started existing like 1 or 2 years ago, when in reality, Randy, you pointed out correctly, it has been around for quite a long time. It's just that ChatGPT made generative AI consumable and easy to use. So, I think that there's some super smart people who pulled things together, and I do feel like it is a new innovation, but I think they always say every new innovation is a combination of something that came before it, right? There's nothing truly new. It's combo of what you said. And think about it, Randy, have you ever had like a great idea and you're like, oh, I'm going to save this idea because this is like the coolest idea. And the next thing you know, you see there's a tweet about it or there's a post about it. And you're like, oh man, I wasn't the only one who had this super brilliant idea.
I've definitely come to certain things independently, only to find out that it's a thing. But there is one thing that I took a bunch of mushrooms years back, And I just wanted to like hang out with people, but I couldn't because I was, on mushrooms. I couldn't go and drive or anything. And I had an idea for an app or a show called like Buddy Friend or Buddy Train, whatever it was. And it would be to, because every now and then, like especially as extroverts, like you have big life energy. You want to go play a frisbee, you want to go like snowboarding, you want to have a burger, you want to drink. And like people like, oh, I have company coming over. It's like, it's a Netflix and chill day for me. And there's nobody out there. So the idea was to have a show to get verifiably cool people, of people like you would want to hang out with. And if they passed the tests and they were cool, we put them in our app and they get to work for us. Nothing ever. I still want to do that at some point, but nobody's done that yet, and I think that's going to be a really good app. But I know we don't have much time here, and I want to continue on with some of these stranger things. So Mark Andreessen, just an incredible investor, he says
Mhm.
that the problem with Google's quantum chip, where everyone discovered this a few months ago, is that it proved that the multiverse is real. And I'm sure that you don't believe in like the Copenhagen interpretation, but do you think he's correct that there's actually billions of alternate realities out there?
Mm, I don't think so. That's my perspective. I don't think there are billions of separate realities out there. But I do believe in the holodeck. I do think the holodeck is coming.
Can you
Do
explain the
you
holodeck
remember
for
Star
everyone?
Trek? You remember Star Trek?
I'm not really so much of a Trekkie, so could you explain that? That'd be great. I know,
Oh
I'll
my
fail.
gosh, what? Randy, you've broken my heart. Oh my gosh. Um, so on Star Trek, there is this holodeck. And so because you're in space and you can't go to the beach or you can't go to the mountains, you'd go to the holodeck and you think about a place you want to be and you're there. Everything's around you and it feels real. The sensations are real, the smells are real, the feels are real, everything is real. And so I do believe that there will be soon a holodeck. In fact, we're already seeing piece of it come together from multiple startups here in Silicon Valley. So I do think that that's real, but I don't think there's alternate universes. Like I don't think I'm here and in, back in the
Really?
17th
So you do
century.
believe in the Copenhagen
I don't.
interpretation?
I'm sorry.
So you do believe in the Copenhagen interpretation, where it's just one reality, one timeline, and one.
I do. I do. Yeah, I do.
That's interesting. I want to have you back on for another. Well, I want to have you here for like 3 hours. I know you have to go, so I want to wrap this up. In the title, I still have crypto, NFTs, and more. Uh, Blockchain. What's your favorite blockchain? Why? And why is it better than the others?
Oh, I can't pick a blockchain because I work with so many different chains, and the one I don't pick will be mad. But I do think that blockchain is a super powerful technology. And I do believe that it will actually elevate because of AI, Randy. In fact, I'm working right now with a company, and you'll love this. Okay. So they create AI agents. And let's say the agent is like a bank teller or a customer support representative or something like that. And those agents now have their own wallets, their own crypto wallets that are built on the blockchain. And so, if you go into a store and you're returning something, the person who's taking the return will say, you've worn this, or, so I'm only going to give you back, 95% or whatever. So now they're letting the agents decide that, and they each have their own wallet. So they get measured on it with their own spend accordingly. So I do believe that this combination of blockchain with AI is super powerful. I'll give you another example. Our past Pope, there was a picture of him in a Balmain jacket. Balmain's, if you don't know, is a big brand in Paris. I think their jackets go for like $8,000. Anyway, there's a picture of the Pope with this puffer jacket. And of course, people were commenting on it. Some were like, oh my gosh, why did he buy that puffer jacket? He could have given that money to the poor. Well, it turns out he came out and said, this is not a picture of me. This is a deep fake. Well, if you had had a blockchain verification, then he could have verified that picture and we would have all known, oh, this is a real picture versus a fake picture. 1 week later, Randy, I went to an NFT event in Los Angeles when they had NFT LA, and they had this red carpet event. And it's LA. LA is supposed to be warm, but it was freaking cold. And the only jacket I had brought was a puffer that I had worn on the plane. So here I had on my beautiful, elegant evening gown, but I had to wear my puffer because I was freezing. And so somebody took a picture of me on the red carpet with my beautiful dress and my puffer on it, and they posted it. Well, do you know what everybody said? Oh, that's fake. That's a deep fake. That never happened. Why? Because the Pope had just posted, or they had just faked the Pope out, and now they thought anybody in a puffer jacket is fake. And so blockchain could turn that around, and I could verify with a pink check mark, oh, this is a true picture, this is not a picture. Could do that for video, I could do that for audio, for quotes, for so many different things I could do and leverage that kind of thing for. So I'm a huge believer in blockchain, and a huge believer that blockchain plus AI is the future.
Agreed. I want to talk off camera for a couple minutes, so I'll end it here. But just so I can mention them, DEVVE, DFINITY, VeVe, OMI, all great things. Everyone say bye-bye to Dashi. Bye-bye, Dashi. And this is great. Thank you so much for coming. And we'll talk off camera in a sec. And everyone that wants to go in and support her, is the link is down below in my comments.
Yeah, I'd love for you guys to buy my book. Thank you.